that's a new little piece added on the end. Welcome, everyone, to the Opt-In show. I'm Lisa Harrison. So good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you happen to be. And as usual, we have quite a cast here. We've got Bob from Pennsylvania. Bob Wright.
Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, depending, evening, wherever you might be. Glad to be here. Welcome, everyone, to the show.
Thanks, Bob. And we've got Chris in Melbourne.
Hi, everybody. Ditto to what Bob just said. And I hope you had a lovely Easter.
Yes, I have. It's been nice and quiet for a change. And Brian in San Diego.
Yes, hello, Lisa. I was taking those last couple of moments there to try to come up with an April Fool's joke, but I realized I guess those are probably much better planned in advance. But thanks. Good to be here. Hello, everyone.
We've also got Scott Bartle from Western Australia with us today.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
And we do have, although he's just dropped off, so I'm sure he'll be joining us again, we have Darrel from Canada. Both of them, both Darrel and Scott, have thankfully agreed to join us today to give us an update on what's been going on with Darrel. There's been a lot of doing going on in Canada. And Scott's here to help us work through the courtesy notice process and what comes next. Now, just a couple of announcements before we move on. Firstly, obviously, if you want to be a part of the chat room, for this program, you need to go to freedomreigns.us and click on the chat link on the left-hand side of the page, and you can be part of the chat room over there. So that's first things. Secondly, we still are in need of some volunteers, which you can have a look at what's required, what the people, the creative team there are looking for over at the optin.com website. There is a volunteers page there. If you do have the time to offer your expertise, your energy, please go along to that website and have a look at what they're looking for. As I think I've announced in the last 2 weeks, that website is being overhauled in the background. And there's a train coming, guys, so if I get drowned out, you'll know why. But things have slowed down because of other people's commitments to other things. So desperately in need of some volunteers there. And I think that's it. And I'm going to mute myself while this train goes past. Chris?
Okay. Well, essentially there's going to be sort of two parts to the program today. The first part, we're going to be talking to both Scott and Darrel, and we'll actually start off talking with Scott first, specifically about courtesy notices, and then we'll move into a discussion with both Scott and Darrel, because Darrel's been doing some amazing things in Canada, really putting things in front of the right people, as you'll discover. And for those of you that follow Dee's blog, you would have noted that there in one of her current articles today that the powers that were in Australia are particularly perplexed about the amount of doing that's going on here, and particularly the stuff that's been generated by the courtesy notice that's come out of the west of our fair country here. So, Scott, how are you today?
G'day. Yeah, good. And
good.
Yeah, feeling.
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
Chris. Yeah, no.
Tell us how you're feeling.
Oh, absolutely stoked. It's just got the vibe about this whole thing at the moment is just awesome. It's like every time you turn around, there's another nugget of information falling into place. There's dots just being joined left, right, and centre. Now, they might be small little dots of little bits of information, and you just stumble across one and go, okay, now that explains how that works. Or like last week with those UCC filings come out with that executive order from President Clinton and defining the human capital. You're just like, okay, thank you. I'll use that with this document over here and bundle that up and bail that one off to the bank and see how they like that.
Yeah, do you want to talk about...
I did actually want to put a... Hi, Scott, by the way.
Yeah,
I did just
Lisa,
want to put a quick
back
call
in?
out to the Australians and just say, oh my God, well done. We are probably one of the most active countries in terms of using the courtesy notices, and you guys are seriously having an impact. And I want you to know that, and don't stop, because the energy generated here is having an effect. So please don't think that you're just sending these things off and they're going nowhere. They are having an effect. They're getting very nervous over here.
Mm. And to add to that, before we jump into Scott's, we were talking with our energy guy last week, and his perceptions of what the courtesy notices are currently doing inside the system all around the planet are that the people who are receiving them to begin with were passing them on to those above them, but not talking about them to people around them. And now they are. There's big discussions going on inside organisations, across the organisation, rather than up and down it. And that is a significant, shall we say, energy dump into those organisations, which is exactly one of the things that we wanted the courtesy notice to do.
Mm-hmm. So, Scott, the questions that are coming up now, seeing as this courtesy notice process has been out there for, what is it, 2 months now?
Yeah, about that.
That long? That, people have sent their original courtesy notices. They've been given an opportunity to start sending invoices, and that's been going on now for several weeks, and they're looking at the next step. Now, people are using courtesy notices, obviously, for a lot of different reasons, and if the courtesy notice and sending the invoices is resulting in whoever is harassing you just leaving you alone, then great. But if you're in a position where you are actually hoping for an action on their part, then sometimes the courtesy notice and the invoices is not enough to compel them to act. What's the next step? What do people do to ensure that those receiving these invoices know that they're not just empty pieces of paper, that they can in fact be enforced or acted upon?
Well, the word that's coming to me right now is persistence. If, for example, you sit there and go, oh, nothing's happened, they must be right, is what we've typically generated in our heads before. My suggestion there strongly is to continue with the invoices and overdue notices, and perhaps escalate the level of proximity that you use to deliver that notice. So, for example, if you sent your first one by registered mail, send the next one by email, because your email's a little bit more personal, one-to-one, whereas registered mail tends to go in the front door, gets to the reception, okay, yeah, we'll send that one to level 4, and it's quite distant in terms of separation. Whereas email goes from my inbox to their inbox, or my computer to their inbox. If you emailed it, you might consider walking it in the front door and asking for Mr. Smith or Agent Smith or whoever, and here you go, here's your overdue notice. So I'd suggest that's a good method of conveying that persistence and also escalating the energetic transfer of getting in their space and sharing.
Eyeballing them.
Yeah, and chances are I would be very interested to see the reaction. Darrel, I'm sure, can talk to this as to what they look like when you actually are right there in front of them, because it's really good news that they're actually receiving. Most of them just don't know it yet, or are still operating from a different paradigm.
And Darrel, but before you start, for those of you who don't know who Darrel is, if you could give yourself a little brief introduction about who you are and what it is that you've been up to in Canada.
Quite a lot, actually. Retired from the military a few years ago.
Can't hear you quite clearly yet.
I retired from the military. I'm actually still in the reserve, and I was asked to go back to Ottawa to look at the defense of Canada. So I started doing an investigation, and basically it led me around to the threats to the people here are the existing government corporation and the banks.
So they asked you to do an investigation and to find out who Canada needed to be defended against, and you came back with the banks and the corporations.
That's right, and it was basically about
the corporate government included.
Yeah, corporate government. It was quite surprising when you actually find out how the world actually does work. Disappointing, but we have a solution, so that's the main thing.
You know, Darrel, I kind of liken it because I was telling the other guys earlier today, I was watching a little documentary on the Matrix trilogy and what the actual movie represents, the allegory behind the movie. And it's basically describing our journey as humanity. And one of the things that, you know, was interesting in the movie was that when Neo actually woke up, when he realized the reality of the real world that he was living in, you know, and then on top of that, when it was told to him, you're the one that's got to save us, it was overwhelming. He threw up in the movie, you know, when all of that really dawned upon him, that it was him and the reality of the situation was completely different than the illusion, the matrix that he was living in, that he thought was his reality. And this is what's happened exactly with the OPPT. You know, people are waking up and realizing the real world, the situation that we're in, you know, and now we're coming to understand that we're the saviors, we're the ones that have to fix it, right? And a lot of people threw up, you know, in a sense, because, you know, I think people they're still shedding, and for Neo it was a process, just like it is for us, you know, going through that process of understanding who we are, understanding what it is we have to do and why, and then actually doing it.
You know, when he first wakes up in that pod and he's in that jelly mixture, that goo, that's exactly what it can feel like at first. You know, like you're in this, your reality suddenly seems thick and gooey and you can't quite get clean of it for a while. And it is earth-shattering, illusion-shattering. I mean, which is always a good thing, but can be painful.
Yeah, look, and one of the reasons we invited Darrel directly on the show today to talk is because he was giving wake-up calls, has been giving wake-up calls to the judge and court staff and legal staff he's been working with on some foreclosures that he deliberately brought about on himself to investigate the system. And that has since worked its way down as the things have gone through the court, the incredibly fraudulent court process that they've got going in Canada, right the way through down to the pseudo-sheriffs, who aren't actually sheriffs but enforcement officers, all of whom are being re-educated by what Darrel calls an improvised educational device in the form of the courtesy notice. So, Darrel, do you want to give us a quick rundown on the process that you went through and how it played out with the sheriffs or the enforcement officers last week?
Sure, Chris, I will. Actually, I was going to back up a little bit further there for you and give you some more background. When I completed my investigation, I went to a Superior Court judge that I knew and presented the evidence against the Government of Canada. And he basically said, and within that was also the fraudulent activities of the banks, of the major banks here in North America. And one of the things he suggested was to get this out in the media. I was going to use the court system. Actually, I did use the court system. I figured, well, the best way of doing it, getting on this public record, is we just won't pay it. I know it's fraudulent. All the evidence is there. We'll get it in the court system, and then we can correct it that way. He suggested to me that it's going to take too long, and actually he was quite right, because I stopped paying mortgages in April of last year. So here we are, almost a year later. So what I've been doing is providing the documentation to the government, so they know who I am. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with the parliamentary budget officer. Basically, he does the accounting to determine where money is spent. However, the various departments aren't giving him the evidence. So basically, he had already gotten the evidence from me, showing the fraudulent transactions and so forth. And what I was tracking, I was actually looking at terrorist activities and determining, where the threat was. But I was following financing, I was following gold shipments, and et cetera, back and forth, and it kept leading me back here to North America. So anyway, we'll jump forward to, we finally get into court. Now, I've been in 2 courts here in Ontario, one in Ottawa and one in Hamilton. And the one in Ottawa, I was able to get on public record the foreclosure of the governments of Canada and all around the world, the press release from the public trust, the foreclosure of the Bank of International Settlements and all central banks, and basically tell them that they had no standing because they were foreclosed on. I did this again just about 3 weeks ago in another superior court, but I had given the opposing counsel a courtesy notice a couple days prior. So the interesting thing, when we were presenting evidence, she had mentioned to the judge that, or asked the judge to endorse the record that I not be allowed to arrest her. And that opened up the whole can of worms, because he said, oh, of course, this is relevant. You can't do this. This is a civil matter. So I referred him to the documents that he didn't read, which was the military order stating that I could arrest and detain anyone operating a private monetary and or slavery system. And I said basically that this is a criminal activity and it's fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and the opposing counsel is complicit in the act. So that is also on the public record. So she wasn't too happy. So when we were actually leaving, refused to allow me into the elevator, which I thought to be quite amusing. But anyway, so it is on public record.
Yep, and that's important, because then people who are running other court cases are involved with the system, because I want you to spend just a moment, if you wouldn't mind, talking about how streamlined, how deliberately anti-private citizen the court process for foreclosure is in Canada. They basically have no ability to stop the process virtually, Darrel.
That's correct. It is a process. And what they did is they changed the law here, I don't know how many years ago, but basically the banks do not have to provide any evidence whatsoever. It is an administrative process. In other words, you either pay it or forget it. We're foreclosing on you. And it is basically a rubber stamp. No matter what evidence I had there, the judge refused to even look at it, closed the book. Well, he didn't even read the book, and said it was irrelevant, and ruled in favor of the banks. So
who's working for who?
Well, they're working for the banks, and it's actually endorsed on a motion to vacate or a motion to possess property. You'll see, for instance, on the document, it's not the judge that actually signs it. It is the opposing counsel for the bank.
Darrel, am I correct in my assumption that this is not just in Canada, that even here in Australia, what happens when a bank chooses to foreclose on a property, that they put in a UCC filing, they don't tell you that they have, it stands unrebutted, and at that point the foreclosure is a done deal, and the whole process of us going to court and whatever we do in court is simply a farce from that point on.
You're exactly right. It is a show. And that document number, or that court file number on the top right corner, is a
UCC
financial
number.
Exactly. Yeah.
So they've actually used the UCC against people without telling them, no chance to defend themselves, and pretended to run a court case. when in fact it's already been done.
That's exactly right. And I've been getting emails and people asking, well, aren't you upset? You know, they throwing you out of your home. I say, well, no, not really, because they were all given courtesy notice. There's 5 that I've, for instance, we'll just talk about one right now, and that's at $448,000 right now for one individual. Now, if you think there's a total of 5, we're at $2.5 million, and I have 3 houses. So you guys do the math. So am I upset? No, because I know how the system works. So we'll go back in the UCC filing, and we'll claim a lien against that.
Okay, well, this brings us back to our original question for both Scott and Darrel. What now? You've got all these invoices out there. Scott, you've been doing this for some time in regards to your car. For those people who have seen what the FUQ, they'll know what I'm talking about. Now, liens, from what I understand, liens aren't necessarily the way to go at this point, but I could be completely wrong about this. What's the next step to show that you can get enforcement on these invoices?
Well, probably worth drawing that distinction is, and Heather clarified this one, a lien is used for when you want to recover property from, or you want to attach a claim to their property for the payment of a debt. So you don't use a lien to when they've stolen your property to recover that property, because that property was already yours. And filing the lien is evidence that it's theirs that you're attaching a claim to.
Well, hang on. Let's say, for instance, with Darrel's house. If Darrel's happy to walk away from the house, but he wants payment on those invoices, then a lien would be suitable?
Yeah. He wouldn't put the lien on the house because that's already his. That's just been stolen from him. He would use a lien to attach a claim to the assets of those who did the theft, for example, their house, until his invoices are paid. So, yeah, it's basically you could use the lien for the unpaid invoices, essentially, and that's what I've done in the past. Now, I think what we described on the courtesy notice guidelines was the next step, which is that UCC process to following up on those unpaid invoices. And that, I think, would certainly be dropping a bombshell when UCC statements come rolling across the desk.
Yeah, Scott,
so
and I think you're referring to a declaration of facts and true commercial bill. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah, and I actually was able to get that because in Superior Court, the council asked for costs associated with the court hearing, and I was allowed my time to speak, and I said I would be submitting a declaration of facts and true commercial bill for the events that occurred here today. Yeah. Which the judge didn't get.
So that's the process then. You bundle up the invoices that you've sent and you file within the UCC a declaration of facts and a true commercial bill.
Yes, but here's another thing that people should consider. All commercial paper is now owned by the public trust. So therefore, they should be submitted or they should be CC'd or actioned on the filing also. Because technically, if there is a bankruptcy or a public trust holds the assets and or the funds, you would not be going to the existing, you would be going to the trustee to settle the debt.
Now, one of the things, Darrel, and I spoke with you earlier, and this kind of corresponds with what they were saying in that Matrix Decoded thing. When Neo actually said no, and he literally stopped the bullets as they were arriving. They were coming to him, and he said no. Basically, that's what the courtesy notice is. It's you saying no, right? But it was his belief in himself that actually really stopped the bullets. But he went a step further. And they started throwing everything that they could at him, and he found he could defend himself basically with one arm behind his back, which he was doing quite easily. But then he took a step further, and he actually went into the agent. And from inside the agent, he changed the agent and literally destroyed that whole the from within. Concept. And you've actually started to do that by actually directly trying to educate the sheriff and the officers involved. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, the sheriff doesn't understand international law, refuses to read the documents, so therefore she's liable for the actions she's taken and the orders that she has given. And she doesn't understand what an oath and bond is. I took mine years ago, and I appreciate what's involved in that. This person does not. When she was initially given the courtesy notice, I called her up, and she indicated she was the sheriff. When I approached, I drove down there and talked to her. I said, "May I speak to the sheriff?" And she approached. I said, "Some paperwork for you." She denied that she wasn't a sheriff, and she's only an administrative officer. I said, "It's too late. You're the sheriff. You get the documents. I suggest you read them." And that was on the 14th of February. So the actions that they've taken from them, there's a deputy enforcement officer that has been given a series of documents to read. And you guys have seen that transcript, or no, you haven't seen that transcript, but you're going to see the other one and the video of the interview of the officers when they evict me. And I make my claim of right and my color of right for my home. And I said to them that basically until you show me who really owns the property, you bring back the original note with my wedding signature, I'm defending my property under the criminal code. And here's the section. And you're going to have to forcibly evict me. And we spent about an hour there discussing it. You can see it, the reaction in the officers. They understand, they know there's something going on, but Chris, I think you said it, they basically went back, they snapped back into the old paradigm and said, well, we're just following orders. Even though I showed them the sheet and explained it to them, they want to save their job. And this is the process we have to do to educate them that things are changing. Now, on the lighter side of it, we were able to show them the financial system, and this is the future. It's around the corner. But guys, pay attention to what's happening in Cyprus, because the money that they're stealing from the citizens there is coming to Canada, is coming to North America, and it's actually in the new budget here. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things that I was, because I've read the transcript of that conversation, and to me, what we're looking at are operatives who are unlawfully acting for an unlawful order from a court, who's generated that unlawful order from an unlawful process as a result of interacting with a commercial entity that unlawfully began a fraudulent relationship with the person who is standing there in front of the sheriff at that point in time. And the words coming out of the sheriff's mouths were starting to look like testimony from the Nuremberg trials. I'm just doing my job. And trying to actually not want to engage with the arguments you were putting in there, Darrel, because they knew you were dead right. And they know that they should do some homework, and they know that they should stand up to their bosses. And I think you went a long way to getting those guys over the line. I think you would put a real cat amongst the pigeons with that group of officers.
I've got two questions. Darrel, these transcripts and videos of yours, you don't have a website of your own, so they get posted to American Kabuki and Removing the Shackles, is that right?
That's right.
Okay. And two questions that have come out of the chat room. Examples of what the invoice should look like. Now, I know that they've been passed around. Are they up on the optin.com website?
Yes, they are. People can download them, and of course they insert the appropriate name and address and how the individual is served. And then if you've got items 1 to 14 or items 1 to 10, depends on what your original courtesy notice says. So you just fill out the courtesy invoice, submit it to them, and I believe it was 14 days. And people remember it is in 99% silver, because all the central banks and all that fiat currency is fictitious. It's gone.
Yes. And the other question is, in regards to what you just mentioned earlier, that you should copy in the trustees, I take it you were talking about Heather, Caleb and Randall, and the question that came out of that was, but if the trust itself is no more, then how does that happen, or why should that happen?
It's been archived. As I understand, it's been archived as of the 18th. The system is still up and running.
So I have
You're talking about the trust itself or the UCC law system?
You're following the UCC law system?
Yes, but I'm talking about the trust itself, the One People's Public Trust.
Well, within the forms, it's the public trust that has foreclosed on them. Therefore, they have the assets. Whether they are no more is irrelevant. Well, maybe it might be relevant for the filings, but that's what you would list in there. There's actually a box to check for the public trustee. Or the public trust, I should say. Item 17 in the UCC 1.
Terrific. Thank you very much. So, people in the chat room, or if you have me on Skype, if you have any other questions in regards to courtesy notices or invoicing, the step to do next, please put them in now, because we want to move on from that particular part of the conversation. So if you have any more questions on that, put them in now for me.
Yep. Now, before we do move on, there's a couple of other things that Scott and I wanted to bring up. One is the latest document that he and Ken have been working on and are about to release, which is a flyer, which is purely an educational, a shock educational tool. Scott, do you want to speak about that for a moment?
Yeah, sure. I suppose just quickly touching on the level of involvement of using the courtesy notice at the moment. One thing my father, Ken, has mentioned with regard to the questions that he's receiving or answering at that foropack at gmail.com email address is the level of the questioning is getting better. So, for example, the first couple of weeks or something like, who do I send it to? And it was, the level of questioning was quite entry level, if you like. The questions that are coming out now are more concise, more advanced, and really shows that people are getting it. If you look at that on a sort of, what's the vibe of the whole thing? So that's probably another good indicator of it, the level of knowledge just increasing dramatically, which is pretty awesome. As far as the new document that we've prepared, this has a twofold kind of purpose. The first thing was to come up with a document that could be sent without any form of terminology in there like respondent or proponent, that had no requirement to make a signature on the bottom, didn't need to be addressed to any individual specifically, had no terms and conditions involved in it, was just a simple flyer, which we've called the foreclosure flyer, that could be dropped into any bank branch, any government office, and left with the teller, the manager, whoever, and gives them a little snapshot as to what's happened, and also tells them how they could get their own courtesy notice, either with their name on it or that they could use to send to their bank. So it's not a confrontational kind of tool. It just lays it out there and puts it out there to the recipients as to, oh, okay, yeah, I might want to go have a look at some of these websites and look closer at it. It's an interim kind of document before anyone gets a courtesy notice. So it lays it out quite clearly that you keep perpetuating the slavery system by running these Ponzi courts or pursuing loans that never existed and operating as banks, then who knows, it might be a day, it might be 5 days, you may very well receive a courtesy notice with your name on it. So in that sense, it's a document that can be used very easily. Now, the second aspect of that document as to how it might be used is in support of others who've sent a courtesy notice to an individual. So, for example, if a individual at a bank, for example, received 10, 20, 30 of these flyers coming in from various people, they can be emailed. It's just a simple PDF document. They can be hand-delivered. It's showing the support for those who are sending the courtesy notice. By all means, you can send it. Yep.
Sorry. I think your dad did put together a Q&A. Now that's available too, isn't it? So
yeah, that's completely separate. That's specifically to the courtesy notice.
And where's that available from?
I think that was already posted
on the OPPT-IN.com website?
It's on the OPPT-IN.com website, and we should update that too. So let's make sure that happens later in the day.
It's up to version 6 at the moment, and it's been attached to every email that has gone out in response to questions asked lately. So,
and the email for
questions
is FOROPAQ, FOROPAQ @gmail.com for questions just in regards to courtesy notices and perhaps the follow-up process. And I'm sure more information will come out on that as well.
Yeah, that document is going to be released with some simple instructions, and that will be downloadable off the OPPT website hopefully later on today. And we just want people to actually really get into using that. And remember, if you're doing it in person, what Scott's recommended in our discussions is that you keep the verbal explanations to a minimum. You're just dropping some information off for the manager and the staff to look at if you drop into a bank. If you feel you're up to having a one-on-one discussion, do it with the intent that you're delivering good news. There's no confrontation here. They are your equals. And that you're just educating them at that point.
Yeah. Yep. And I think it might turn into some fun in as much as walking into a bank branch and sharing it with the staff, because you're really delivering the good news. And I don't think there'd be too many people who'd be disappointed to find that they didn't have to pay their mortgage or credit card debt or anything like that.
No, not too many.
Could you imagine? Oh, damn. What do you mean I don't have to pay it? I was really looking forward to paying my how many $1,000s per month again this month.
Okay. Where were we going to go from here?
Well, I'm just going to say one final thing. Darrel's story is quite detailed, and if Darrel's willing, I think we need to record a conversation with him and just publish that on the OPPT site so people can get all of the information in what he's done, because it's, he's put in an awful lot of little energetic bombs into the system, and I think it's quite inspiring.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And Darrel, if you could go over the sort of language that you use when you're dealing with these people, because that's something that trips people up a lot.
Well, basically, you approach it from facts, government documents, stuff that's registered, whether it be in the UK, US, Australia. Those are the facts. These are the laws. It's right there. And you will see in the video, or you may see in the video, the difficulty that these guys have when confronted with a criminal code. And now what do I do now? You have this order from a judge who's really not a judge, who's the lawyer for the bank, yet you have a conflict there. And these guys are struggling with what to do. They have a belief system. They believe that they are protecting the public. But when you show them a document that says, well, your police force is...
Could you step closer to your mic, Darrel? You're fading away.
How's that now? Is that
Still
better?
soft.
Okay. Well, you're dealing with people who have a belief system. And what you're doing when you're confronting them with these facts...
We can't barely hear you, Darrel.
We can hear your breathing more than we can hear your voice, which is quite odd.
How's that now?
Not better.
No, still soft.
Okay. Where was that? So
Sorry?
the best way to deal with it is just deal with it facts and documents, government documents, orders, codes, because this is the hard evidence before them.
Darrel, I really can't hear a word you're saying.
I may have to get back, guys. I may have to reboot.
Okay, we'll come back to you. In the meantime, we do have Dee with us, and if you've been watching and following Dee's blog, you'll know that shenanigans are all over. Shenanigans are afoot. So let's bring Dee out to talk about that.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, and I just had the phone ring with an Intel call, just as you said, and we'll bring Dee out. And I'm like, oh, shit. Oh, pardon me.
The shenanigan queen, Miss Dee. Welcome.
Yes. It's been an interesting weekend, I will tell you. Definitely an interesting weekend. So, I wrote about it, a big article on Saturday. Outlining again, for everyone that anyone who's been following this, regardless of what area, be it, like I said, the Nassara side or the RV side or even the light workers, they know. They all have the basic information now in front of them, whether they've been in it 1 year or 10 years. They know how it should play out. And this event, when it happens, if they get up the balls enough to do it, which is still on the table, we're not sure, is going to be the biggest contrast event out there. It is going to be really quite humorous, I think, when it comes out. And funnily enough, I didn't get to talk to Heather very much this weekend, but I got to have a good long conversation with her this morning. And she was laughing because about 2 hours after I posted that article, she got a phone call from someone who tends to call her up every so often, who is highly placed and has a tendency to bring information forward and occasionally offers forward as well from the powers that were. And as I wrote about today in the article today, and I copied and pasted what Heather had written today, they came forward looking basically like, will you wheel and deal with us? Like, can we get you to come on board with us?
Can we play? Can we play?
No. Would you play with us, please? And she actually had me laughing my butt off this morning when she was talking about it, because there was just, they just don't know. Like, literally, at one point she said, I can't remember exactly what he had asked, and she said, well, who's running the show? And there was this kind of pause, and the guy was like, they don't know. As in, it's kind of like they don't even know who it is calling all the shots. There's such chickens with heads cut off, basically. And because they know that their system has nothing behind it. They have nothing of value behind the system to support the system. And
I found it funny when you told me, Dee, that you asked why hasn't the revalue gone through? Why hasn't they don't know why.
No, they don't know
Their
why.
bosses don't know why.
Yep. They don't know why, because you've got, and this is my interpretation of everything that I've watched happening and conversations that I've had with various people, is basically you've got these, the so-called divines, the non-locals, if you want to call them that, are calling the shots. But they change their minds radically all the time. Like, it's like, okay, we're going to go. Okay, yep, here we go. No, stop. Just wait. Okay, now we're going to go. Go. No, stop, just wait. Because I've literally had eye contacts pulling their hair out. Well, we have no idea why it didn't go. We have no idea. Everything's set. It's ready. Why didn't it go? And this is, guru types. This is military and stuff.
Dee, just for the people who aren't fully across what you're talking about, perhaps you better give the 30-second version of what it is they might roll out.
Okay.
And why.
Okay, so basically it all comes out in a giant basket. It was planned that way from the beginning when they set up the new financial system. So it starts with NESARA, which there's tons and tons of information all over the web, all over the net, talking about what exactly NESARA is, etc. NESARA includes a lot of stuff, but it includes things like the abolishment of the IRS and the Federal Reserve because they are illegal corporations. It involves getting rid of income taxes because it is illegal. Basically, pretty much every law that was ever written after the original 13th Amendment is gone. I know that they've had legal teams working on it for the last few months now, rewriting all sorts of laws so that it's all ready to go. Those are just some basics, just some of the very basic premises of it. And, of course, the revaluation, return to the gold-backed currency, the gold-backed standard, and asset-based currencies, which would be a global currency revaluation, and being highlighted, of course, with the Iraqi dinar and the Vietnamese dong are being the two biggest currencies highlighted that everyone has been buying in on to make lots and lots of money because they're so undervalued now. When they are revalued to what should be their asset-backed status, they would be much, much higher in value.
So they want to roll out a new version of the financial system.
Yeah, it's a whole new system, supposed to be a new computer system. It's supposedly transparent. There is much talk that it's based on off-world technology.
So the original NESARA and everything that goes with it, are you saying, I know we talked about this months ago, but just for clarity for anybody who's catching up now, the very original NESARA program was a good thing.
Yes, it was. Absolutely.
However, it has since been usurped or perhaps even adopted to sell another program under the guise of.
That's right.
And this other program is essentially slavery version 2.0.
Exactly.
And when when they bring it out and the details don't match up exactly with the original advertised intent, it's going to expose it for what it is, and they know that.
Yes. So for example, one of the things with NESARA is that the government is immediately closed down, the American government, and an interim government is put in place until they can, vote in a new legitimate government.
So if NESARA is announced, but an interim government is not,
that's right.
Then you know what it is.
Or if the other one is, or for example, I have discussed this for hours and hours and hours with many, many different sources. If per se they say, Obama is stepping down because of health issues or something along those lines, well, that's not NESARA. That is a lie, right? Because if he's been taken down as the president and is no longer president, it needs to be automatically and fully disclosed as to the reasons why. Are they going to announce? There's supposed to be hours and hours worth of announcements, re-education system, videotapes have apparently supposed to have been, all the videos have already been filmed and are ready to go. And there's
10 days of re-education, right? Broadcast on all major TV, radio, internet networks.
Yep, 10 to 20 days of re-education, explaining why the Federal Reserve is illegal and how income tax is illegal, et cetera, and the 13th Amendment, of course, being a really, really big one. Oh, guess what? The bar is gone,
So I gather also, Dee, that one of the things, well, the key thing it does, apart from supposedly shutting down the financial system, was shutting down corporate U.S. government, going back to the original constitution and re-electing a lawful government. And if they don't, for instance, announce that all the statutory laws are now gone, and we're under common law until we re-establish a new legitimate government. If they don't announce that, again, more evidence that it's just a put-up job.
And the original NESARA, was it only for the United States? Was it only for, say, North America, or was it global?
It was only for the U.S. It was a legal decision. It was a court case that happened in the U.S. Now, and this is the whole thing. It's once we started seeing this whole thing of NESARA in Canada and Australia and all of this, that's, I think, when you see the takeover of it. When it was usurped. It's now like, okay, well, now we're going to pass this NESARA type law, and now there's someone's calling it GESARA, GESARA, which is the global, right, instead of just, the national. Going
never real till you've got an acronym for it, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the first things that when the people first talking about this, I was like, okay, wait a second, do you not see the fundamental problem? You are saying you're going to roll out NESARA across the world, which returns the states to true constitutional law. Hello, here in Canada, we don't need American constitutional law. And I'm sure Australians don't need the American U.S. constitutional, and the Philippines and the Congo and all these places, I'm pretty sure you don't have a right to put U.S. constitutional law in effect in other countries without the people voting on it.
Yeah, that'd go over real well.
Yes. But even if they did actually turn around and if they removed the corporate government that actually runs this country and we went back to the original constitution, that would be useful, but I don't think we're going to see that.
So
I think they'll just leave the existing governments in place. I think that's what they'll attempt to do.
And that's what I'm talking about, right?
I think what they are afraid of, they're afraid of people finding out where the real value comes from.
Bingo.
Mm-hmm.
This speaks directly to all the people who, quote unquote, have felt betrayed, and the only reason why they feel betrayed is because they also don't know where the real value comes from. And
can I give a direct example of that, Bob? One that's made them really nervous. One of the reasons that Scott's activities have been upsetting the bank is that the UCC filings that he and Ken have dug up over the last month have indicated that all the banks in Australia, the three major banks in Australia, have actually hocked themselves to the hilt to the Federal Reserve for funding, including what they call chattel paper. And guess what that is, folks? And then, Scott, do you want to mention the other document that someone dug up out of the UCC that was actually put in by the Clinton administration, which is even more specific?
Oh. Yeah. That was an absolute nugget. The hilarious thing is, friends actually wrote off to the auditors at Westpac Bank, one of the big four here in Australia, and dropped the UCC financing statement showing the registration of absolutely everything that bank owned now and in the future as collateral. And we drew the example of if you went and borrowed money for a car, the bank would register a security interest in your car as the collateral, and that's the correlation between the size of the supposed loan and the car is kind of like a one-to-one. So when you see the registration of absolutely every bit of collateral that the bank here in Australia thinks it owns to the Federal Reserve Bank of New York, you get a pretty good idea of the size of the obligation from Westpac Bank through to the Federal Reserve in New York. And then that collateral aspect of it, of the chattel paper, which if you follow the definitions all the way through, you end up at goods. And one of the things goods includes is the unborn young of animals, which I don't think there's any farmer in the planet that would actually go around and count pregnant animals and class them as goods. So it's that just made my stomach turn when I saw that. So basically what's been happening is those have been going out to these in banks, and the silence is absolutely resounding, excepting from a couple of the auditors who've written back trying to explain away the supposed obligations between these banks and the Federal Reserve of New York. But when you get this executive order that comes out that clearly labels humans as capital, it's a little bit hard to rebut that sort of information. And then backed up by that other UCC financing statement that came out on American Kabuki site, which labeled or showed the transaction for $14.3 trillion, where the citizens of the US were sold. I mean, you couldn't ask for better information, just unraveling.
That's where the value is. Behind the scenes in the banking system, they're buying and selling us because we're the value, and it's coming out in the UCC filings, folks.
And it's important I want to distinguish value. You are not valuable because you possess the gold and silver. The gold and silver are representations of your value. The value is you. It's you. It's all you. Your energy, your ideas, your innovations, your being.
Oh, this sounds like a good time for me to pipe in. I'm going to share the journey that I've been going on with this over the last week, this business about value, and a bridge between where we are now and where we want to be, and what that bridge might look like. And people who are feeling from last week's show, they felt disappointed that they didn't end up, or they felt that they weren't going to end up with something in their hands to access value. So I've been going on a journey with this myself. And two things. I realized very strongly two things. We cannot have a representation of value until we know what value it is representing. And not enough people know that yet. And I'm not even fully there yet. I know it intellectually. I know it to a certain extent, but embodying that, really, really knowing that I am eternal essence, and that is the value. And it doesn't matter whether it's a piece of paper or a card with a magnetic strip on it, or gold or silver, that all that is representing my value, my being, my doing. And I thought about, I thought about cash, because I think that's probably one of the most obvious ones. There's no difference between a $5 note and a $100 note, other than what's written on them. They cost exactly the same to print, the same amount of paper and ink, and that's all they're worth. The only difference between them is what we agree collectively is the difference between them. The only value they have is what we have agreed that they have. And if you're in America and you've got a whole bunch of cash and you jump on a plane and come over to Australia and try and spend it, good luck. You'll be very hard-pressed finding someone to accept it, because it's not our agreed representation of value. I can do the same thing with Australian dollars and go to Southeast Asia. If it's not in the form that is agreed upon, it has no value. And so what is it and what is it representing? And until we get we need two things to happen before we can even have a representation and have this bridge. And that is that the current system has to go. because any attempt to give us a representation of value will just be stolen. That's what they do. That's what they've always done. They've usurped it, they've stolen it, they've whatever, you know. So it needs to get to a point where they are powerless to do so. And that is happening now. We're seeing the effects of it, and it's because of every single one of you. Your being and your doing is what is weakening the system and bringing it down. And it will get to the point where they cannot usurp it, whatever we choose to do. And the other thing that has to happen is we have to know completely what this represents, the value that it represents. And if we can get to the point where we know we have those two things, then we can have a representation of that value if we still need it. But right now, to give everybody a thumb drive or a card or anything like that this week, I just don't see it working. And I think Heather knows that. I think Caleb knows that. I think Randall knows that. And that's the journey I've been on. And if anyone wants to say anything to that, go for it.
I think, Lisa, I think you laid it out very eloquently and perfectly. You know, I think that a major problem that people are having is, you know, they got real a lot of people, rightfully so, they've got real hung up on things that Heather has said, and they looked at it as, you know, we were promised things, and you know, it wasn't delivered. And what people have to understand, you know, I realize that the foundation of where those, I don't want to call it griping because that has a very negative connotation to it, but those kinds of complaints where they're coming from, they come from a place from people that are either in fear or in lack or they're suffering, and they just want relief. And, you know, with something like this, it's really easy to go back into history and say this is unprecedented. It has never happened before. Nothing like it has ever happened before. And when you have something of this magnitude that's unfolding, it has to be fluid to allow for change that, in essence, works toward painting a much better and bigger picture. So at one point in time, the idea of a flash drive or the idea of a card using the same old paradigm systems, the same ATMs, the same, you know, pieces of paper with FRN at the top of it as a bridge to where we're going, maybe that made sense. But I think as we go and as this whole plan evolves, the idea behind the paradigm needing to change to an entirely new system, one that maybe doesn't require somebody to have cash in hand, it has to be fluid to allow those changes to come to fruition. Now, some people are still going to say, well, I still, you know, I need to be able to, you know, buy a loaf of bread and put a tank of gas in my car. I realize that. You know, I think everybody on this panel, we all realize that. And it boils down, no matter what, it all comes back around full circle. And people have to ask themselves, have to look long and hard in the mirror and ask themselves, do I want to continue to operate in the old system, or do I want something that's completely new?
Hey, Brian.
And what could that potentially look like? And that's what we have. That's where we're at right now. Yeah, who was that?
It's Darrel here. Brian, can I type in?
Yeah,
just want to give the listeners some facts, some data here, things that are happening behind the scenes. As you know, it actually was out, I think, on AK's site and Dee's site. There was a request from Heather that I do certain things in contact with the Indonesians. And we have been working with them. We have been communicating back and forth. And they had actually offered to give everyone a substantial amount of money. And we went back and we asked them not to introduce it into the system because it had to it had to collapse first because we don't want to keep it alive. It's completely corrupted. And they have agreed. And I'm just going to read you here, just so people know there is a safety net back out there. And whatever the representation is going to be, we do have the backing. And just let me quickly go. I was very happy with the full respect that you gave us. With the power, this is their response to us, with the power and the energy of God Almighty for the welfare and the prosperity of the people for this world. In recent days, the entire document will be sent to the absolute OPPT. The greetings of love from the Big Top Royal, etc., etc., etc. Okay? So they are behind that. It's just it will not be introduced at the current time.
Which gets back to...
I think we need to elaborate a little bit on what and get into the details of this. The person who wrote this email is representing
those are the people who those are the individuals who have the gold and silver, the ones that the Western financial system has been leveraged against for all these years. The new financial system that was supposed to roll out today, and what Dee was talking about, the valuation, did not go today. The reason being they're not getting the backing from the people who actually hold the physical assets.
So the people who hold the physical assets, the powers that were have been using as collateral, are now no longer playing with the powers that were.
Yes.
In part because of what the OPPT has done. And they want to work with the One People's Public Trust instead. And they've offered, I'm trying to put this in as simple terms as possible, they've offered to give everybody on the planet $6 million. And they want to work with Heather and the others in order to make this happen. However,
we have asked
right
them not
now because of the fact that the powers that were still have the ability at this moment to hijack it and steal it along the way.
Exactly. These individuals have had the assets for years, but they have been manipulated by the Western powers. And their value, their gold and silver has been stolen, and they're rather upset with that. So we have offered them a solution. We've offered them some suggestions, and they have accepted that. And in response, this last email said, we'll provide you the documents, the appropriate account numbers and so forth to back the OPPT.
So is there any strings attached with this $6 million? Is it $6 million but you're still a slave, or is it $6 million and you're free? Is it $6 million without the current system, former system? What comes with this?
I think that's what needs to be negotiated and discussed fully and completely, probably face to face.
No, there are no restrictions with it.
No, but I think what Lisa's getting at is we all know now that we are completely free. That as eternal essence embodied, we are free and we are equal. There is no need of banks because we are the value. There is no need of government because we are eternal essence and we can do what we need to do. So I think what Lisa's getting at is, do they have expectations of, this will work in such a way, and is it going to be payable in what's it going to be payable in? How is it going to be paid out? Will it go through banks? Will it go through a completely new entity that'll be separate? Right? These are all details that would need to be ironed out and completely sorted and in full transparency.
Well, no, these were done through previous emails, and what we said the best way for them was to arrest the illegal agents and actors within their banks and corporate governments, and to give that $6 million to the people, keep it away from the banks, and have that system collapse first before that the value actually goes back to the people. And these are, you got to remember, these are the trustees, the kings, queens, etc. from old who had that duty to give it to the people, and they've been trying to do that over the years, but they've been held under. So that's why they have, and they were rather upset in the emails of what is happening, and they don't want to see things continue as they have been. They want change, and they're actually speaking.
The question that's coming up in the chat room is, did we go from 10 billion to 6 million? No, there's not There's not really a connection between the two. This just happens to be one of the many things that are going on in the background of people who want to come forward to free the people.
That's absolutely correct, Lisa.
Yeah, and there are others.
Yeah, and they're not writing. They do in previous emails. They do not want to underwrite the new financial system that they're trying to push through with this RV.
Yeah, because it's completely nothing to do with equality.
Exactly.
There's nothing to do with equality, and I've written about this several times over the last few months. There's nothing about this new financial system that they're pushing that has to do with equality.
See, overlaid on this is that the system itself needs to collapse. It needs to actually firstly be exposed for what it is. I don't think that these funds should be released until the system is actually exposed for what it is.
Exactly.
And
they can do it themselves. They can do it themselves by trying to pull this fake Nasara, which will blow up in their faces.
Oh, yeah.
Or overlaid on that is the event that has been announced by the trustees, the event of essentially absolute data arriving, where indeed the people will internally know what the truth actually is. Doesn't matter which order these things happen in, the people will actually get the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And also, Chris, if need be, we will have the representation for however long it takes people to adjust to the new energy exchange system. So,
yeah, well, as Dee said before, even this Nasara deal, they've got 10 to 20 days of educational material prepared, which is their version of absolute data, if you like. I would prefer the absolute data. I don't want something that's gone through them.
Oh, so would I. I mean, and that's kind of the joke, right? Because they have this new computer system for the financial system that is supposed to be so transparent. No more money laundering, no more derivatives, no more leveraging. Oh, it's going to be completely transparent. Are they going to be so transparent as to show exactly where the value is coming from? I don't think so.
Well, if they were completely transparent, they wouldn't be having a representational system, would they?
Exactly.
Yes,
I just want to ask for clarification from everybody on the panel in terms of their understanding of those original documents that quoted $10 billion. I never read that initially to mean that I was going to get $10 billion. What I understood it to mean was that there was, because those filings were not for me, not for us. They weren't written to me. They weren't written to the public. They were written to the powers that were. And they were arbitrary figures to represent, firstly, $5 billion in value and $5 billion in damages for what they've done. And it could have been any figure.
Well, actually, they were based on the superior audit, so they were real hard assets that were out there.
Okay.
But yes, but Heather has said that it was a low estimate. Like it should be so much more than that. And you hit the nail on the head. That was meant to send a message to the powers that were that the game was over. And it wasn't meant. It never said anywhere in there. People can go back and read it for themselves. I did once or twice since then. It never said in there that anybody's going to be getting a $10 billion check that they can go to the bank and cash in for Federal Reserve notes. First of all, it talked about gold, but it was like it was just a message, really. Go back in there and reread it. I mean, people can see it, and they got real hung up. I mean, the first conversation that I had with her for 2 hours and 45 minutes, Dee was on there. Those were all my questions for the first half hour, 45 minutes. And I'm told that if you go back and re-listen to that conversation, there's a lot to take away from it. And at that time, the answers that Heather gave to some of those questions were frustrating to some. But I'm told that if you go back and listen to it again, that you can pick pieces out and really start to understand where we are now and how the story still has remained the same. I'm going to listen to it again one of these days, just 2 hours and 45 minutes. That's a big time.
That's that very first conversation with Heather that went public you're talking about?
Yeah, I'll put it in the chat room.
We should maybe put it back up on the sites, Brian. Maybe tonight we should dig it up and actually put it back out on American Kabuki and put it on RTS so that it's right there, so people can just click on it and listen to it again.
Good idea. I'll post it on AK after the call.
Okay.
So these conversations that we've been having for the last few months about access to value, it's in a way it just feels like it was a stepping stone, and I'm not trying to play down anything because I'm trying to look at a bigger picture. A stepping stone in terms of getting us to recognize what the value is.
Yes.
And if you got people thinking about having $10 billion, then I think I did say this on the radio shows a few times that the minute everybody got $10 billion would be immediately followed by the minute that none of it was necessary, because it becomes completely worthless and superfluous at that point.
Yep. It becomes like 10 billion grains of sand.
People needed to get an idea of their worth, and that's not even. That's a small representation of your real value. This is. People. $10 billion gets traded in a second. That's not a lot of money. But people need to get an idea of their real worth. People are coming from the idea, the thought in their head that I'm in debt.
Yes.
They have this mentality that they're in debt. If you understood the truth of the matter, you are not in debt. No one is. They just tricked you into believing that you were.
Yes.
Actually,
I'm sorry. I'm just looking at the chat room, and it's like the panel is taking our money and spending it. Sorry.
He's clearing their ears out, I think.
Oh.
You guys can't see us right now. We're swimming in gold coins.
Oh, look. My gold chair is creaking.
Well, here's the thing. We've talked about this before real quick, just to touch on what Bob just said, is if you give everybody $10 billion, you set the foundation for us to end up exactly where we were in some very predictable point in time in the future. What the powers that were became very, very, very good at is figuring out ways to manipulate so they could hoard all the value back in their court.
Exactly.
That's what they've become especially over the course of the last couple hundred years. That's what they've become absolute pros at. So if you do that, it's setting it up. It's setting the system up to self-perpetuate and for us to end up back in that very same situation. I can just see a guy going, going to Las Vegas and saying, "What do I got to lose? It's still $10 billion all on black," and then all of a sudden, in the high limit, no limit poker, right? And then he loses the spin, and now he's broke again. That's essentially an illustration of what it would be, or what it could possibly be. So trust me, it doesn't make any sense for everybody to get at least the value in the same system, the same form that we have it, that it's in now, for that to be the plan. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, and it plays into the whole new system as well. This whole new supposed financial system, how new is it if the same politicians are in charge? If the same bankers are still running the same banks? The same billionaire CEOs are still raking in all the money off all the products that you're going to buy with your $10 billion. Well, how is this different?
Well, that's what I see NESARA doing. If this NESARA thing comes out, everybody's going to run out and act like new lotto winners, as we've talked about before, They're going to be broke again in 12 months because they'll have gone crazy buying all the things they haven't been able to buy in the past. It all ends up back in the same hands it's in now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, the whole purpose of
I give it 12 months.
What we're doing here is education.
Yeah.
And I'm going to point your listeners to the opt-in site under resources. There's a document there you need to read to understand energy. It's called Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And that document talks about controlling the energies, all right, and making them scarce in order to make you compete for them. And this is what this will be a way for people to understand how they've been manipulated since the 1900s. So
one of the other comments that I just saw in the chat room was that why didn't we just start talking about the law of attraction from the beginning? That it's all about the law of attraction, because it's not. It's so much more than that. And this, the One People's Public Trust has been a tool. It's always been a tool. It created it.
We've been. I'm not going to tiptoe around this anymore because I've just seen too much, and I know that this is real. The reality that you're living in is not real. The only reason why, for instance, you're not able to fly right now is because you don't believe you can. The only reason why you're getting old and getting sick right now is because you believe that limitation. We're setting the boundaries ourselves. It's not just about the law of attraction, it's about our reality in this existence. Right now, we're the ones who hold it together. If you really want to get an education, start looking into quantum, what they've discovered in quantum physics. That matter only exists because we believe it should.
Exactly.
Yes, like the universe exists because we exist. And everybody keeps asking, well, what I still want to go out and get a house, and I still want to go out and get a car. We're not saying that nobody's going to be able to go out and get the things that they desire. We're just saying that once this absolute data comes about, we won't need cash in hand to attract the things into our lives that we want. We won't need to go out and use gold or use silver or use Federal Reserve notes. That's everybody keeps saying, talk about the event, talk about absolute data. All right, I'm talking about it.
Here's absolute data, okay? And this is a fact. There's no denying it, okay? And this is just a fact of technology. There is a machine that exists that can, you've heard of 3D printing, but that can do this at a subatomic level, literally creating and putting energy patterns together to create anything you want. This machine exists, okay? It's real. There's a patent for it. It's there. The prototypes exist. And it works.
Yep.
Now, that machine was back engineered from human DNA. That machine was back engineered from you, the human person. We have this ability. We just don't know how to use it. Now, whether you return the machine or you return the knowledge of how to use your own internal ability, both would render the entire system unnecessary. Okay? And the thing about using this machine, within 15 minutes of using the machine, humans figure out that they don't need the machine at all. They could do it themselves. So either one of these things returning into our introducing that into the system would immediately show you where the value is coming from, because it's coming from your energy. It's coming from you. And it would also immediately eliminate the need for money. It would eliminate the need for factories. It would eliminate the need for any of the structures that you see right now. And it would give you the ability to create the world you wish. It would give you the ability to clean up anything that you saw in your reality, because this construct can be changed. You're living on a holodeck. I'm sorry. This is
Bob is absolutely correct.
this may sound like science fiction to you, this is real. You're living on a holodeck.
And
Think about
there are
what
people in the chat room who completely get that.
Yeah, think about what having one of these things and showing a working prototype, and then also having a free energy device. What that does to the people that think that they're still in power. If we don't need, if the perception is we no longer need them for anything, we don't need their government, we don't need anything that they're offering to us. We have the ability to create anything that we want, anything that we desire on our own. Then all of a sudden, the veils of the illusion are lifted once and for all.
And you have to know, guys, this is not just a hypothetical situation or conversation here. We do know that getting these things out into the marketplace is happening.
Lisa.
I don't know how much we can say about it, but I do know that's what's going on.
Well, no.
Lisa?
Let's talk about it.
Hang on. Darrel wants to say something. Hang on.
No, I just want to tell everyone, there are, on the opt-in website, there are 2 free patents available for anyone who wants to design their own. One is for a 5-kilowatt free energy generator. The other patent is for an anti-gravity machine. Okay? Those are there. Those are free, available for you to download. Take it to your universities, your college, your garage, whatever you want to do, and you can create your own free generator.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now, folks, so there's one, I want to ramp this up one more level, okay, because I had a phone call yesterday from someone who's been following the show for a long time, and there was one really important thing that they hadn't quite got yet, despite listening to all the shows, reading all the, well, probably not all the documents, but reading a lot of the material, and they were really quite across it, and that's this. The event we're talking about isn't just about us. Dee's been referring to what we call the non-locals. We're calling the some of these entities on Earth, we're calling them the divines, but they're non-locals. They're not from this planet. There's an awful lot of the other races interacting with this planet. They're all very interested in this planet right now. And here's why. This planet, as the densest reality, the hardest, toughest place to live in this known universe, is actually the center, was actually the center of about an 8,000-year-plus experiment that was terminated on December 10th last year by one of the filings. That experiment was over, and that experiment was to see if beings could actually be completely cut off from the rest of the universe and find their way back to it. Now, the event that we're referring to is the point in time at which that information is completely revealed to everybody on this planet. What it will do is reconnect us back to literally the rest of the universe via a thing that Heather calls the absolute grid. And 2 things will happen at that point. All the information, that's the sum total of our experiences for the last 8,000 plus years, will flow back out to the rest of the universe, and all the information that's been withheld from us will flow back into us. So that absolute event, which is actually declared in 2-3 different documents, it's actually declared in the February 18th release of the December 10th document, where each manifestation within the universe, within creation, not just us, is actually returned to being self with the record of creation and knowledge of the energy grid and all the patterns and manuals of creation for knowledge and use of absolute truth, communication, travel, and further creation by self amongst self. That's the replication aspect of our DNA technology, folks. That's what's being returned to us. That's what the event is. And it's as significant to the races outside this planet as it is to us. Because the other thing that the document did that was released very recently by Heather is actually quash, in fact, the one that actually closes down the trust actually quashes all hierarchies across existence, not just here. If you go back and read from the CVAC documents onwards, they all refer to the entirety of creation, not just here. And when they shut down, all that has been fully audited and reconciled into absolute eternal essence, inclusive of all trust systems, networks, regimes, hierarchies, and any and all other limits unrebutted. They're talking about all that is, folks, not just on this planet here. So what's going to happen here rebounds across the entire universe, and we're right at the center of it. And that is the piece of information that you really need to get your heads around, because that is the key reason why jumping into a representation of value now is pointless, because this event is fairly imminent. Can't give you an exact date, but that is the specific event that's coming, and that is the implication of the event.
And this is what the powers that were really did want you to find out, what your true power is, what your true abilities are, and how to use them. Now, would you rather $10 billion, or would you rather the owner's manual to your machine that you call your body? Which would you rather? Really? And, you know, when you have absolute data, when you know how to use that technology, and you can create anything that you want, where's your limits? Now you're only limited by your imagination, or lack thereof. And that is the true value. That is the true value. And then you'll know, and then you'll see where the true value, that you are powerful, that you are a creator. That's what we're here for, to create our own experience.
And, you know, one thing, Bob, just to touch on that is, you know, this conversation that we've been having, you know, on these shows, I mean, it's evolved a lot over the course of the last 3 months. And that, what you just said really brings it to where it's like a perfect summary of where we are in this now moment, which is, it's one thing to say, you know, it feels really good to say, you know, I'm the creator and I'm eternal essence and you know, I have the ability to manifest anything and attract anything into my life. It's one thing to say those things and to really feel like you believe it. It's another thing to know it, to absolutely know it as undeniable, absolute truth. And that's what this event is. It's that conscious knowing of these things that we're talking about, not feeling these things, not saying them. It's the actual knowing. And then we get all of the power that we were designed from the very beginning of this experiment to finally get back once and for all.
Can I just say a personal shout out to the people in the chat room who completely understand what's being said here and are countering a lot of the negativity in the chat room. Thank you. And to those who are still putting comments in like, I don't get it, are they saying there's no money?
Oh my God.
I don't know what to say.
See, Lisa, tell them there is money if they need it. But this is a learning process everyone is going through. Not everyone is to the stage as we are right now. Okay? So tell them not to worry.
Yeah, but I'm feeling for them because they're stuck. And I know how it feels to be stuck like that.
And we're going to help them, okay?
Yes, there is money if you need it. And yes, there are lots of people out there who are trying to find ways of getting it to you without it being stolen.
Yes.
Before it gets to you. Okay?
Because you've got to point out too, Lisa, that whole effort in Cyprus is the cabal stealing off former colleagues.
Oh yeah. This is
right.
A lot of people
They're stealing off each other now because they can't steal any back off us at the moment.
That's right, and they don't have the collateral accounts because that's been pledged to the OPPT.
Or the St. Germain Trust. They don't have that money either. Well, gee, I wonder what they're going to try and use to make this new system.
But the people who do genuinely have access to these assets and who genuinely do want to see you have a bridge between here and there are still trying to work out the details on how to get it to you. Yep. That's essentially what we're trying to say. But in the meantime, spend your energy paying attention to those 3 questions. what is the value that all of this shit represents, whether it's cash or whatever? What is the value that it truly represents? Where is that value located? And who has control of that value? And the answer is, the value is you. It is located within you, and you are the one who controls it. In the meantime, spend time and energy on those questions. That's the only advice I can give you at this point. It is within you. You are it.
And another thing, too, on that, Lisa, is, I get a lot of Facebooks and I get a lot of emails about, people say, well, I'm doing just fine, but this person over here is just really struggling and they're operating in so much fear, and I'm just ready to go with the flow, but they're in pain and they're struggling. Sometimes there's nothing that you can say or do to somebody else to make them feel better. Sometimes they just need to go through that, whatever it is that they're going through, to get it out of their systems, because it's something that will allow them an incredible growth opportunity. So it's why you never hear most of us lose our cool. I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I know that we don't, freak out on people, and they call in and they ask, they throw questions at us or whatever, because there's nothing, for, at least for me personally, for me to defend. And when people send me Facebooks and they talk about all these other people that are struggling, I wish that I could flip a magic switch that would make everybody's suffering go away. But on a deeper level, on a fundamental level, there's a reason that why people have designed these experiences in their life that allow them the experiences and the suffering that they're going through, because there's the most opportunity for growth during times of adversity. Beating whatever it is that you think is holding you back. I'm so grateful for losing all losing my businesses, losing my house, losing all my money, and being dead broke. It made me who I am today, and it made me realize that I don't need any money. I just want to have my needs met, and I want to go around, I want to travel the world, and thank God for those experiences that allowed me to learn those lessons. I'm glad that no one came to my rescue on a white horse, because those are the experiences that I designed ahead of time to allow myself opportunity to grow.
Is there any? We've only got 20 minutes left of the show, and there are people on the call with questions, but if we're going to open them up, we need to do it now. Is there anything else that we wanted to address before we do that? No? Okay. I do have a couple of things. There's been talk about arrests over the weekend. Dee, you're the girl to ask here. Has there been any confirmation that took place at all?
Yes. There was not 600 people arrested last week. There was not. I have no idea what hat that number was pulled out of, but it's not true. There were arrests. There are confirmed arrests.
Of bankers?
Bankers, financial people, people working within that industry, for a fact, yes.
Okay. Has it made the mainstream news at all? Because
No.
I wouldn't know, because I don't watch it.
No, and it won't. And this is the whole thing. When mainstream news is completely controlled, I'll bet you they conveniently didn't have a single news camera anywhere near Wall Street in the 2 days that all those arrests took place, just to make sure they didn't accidentally film, Blackhawks on tops of buildings.
Okay. The other thing is something that's been asked in the chat room a couple of times, for a little bit more information on Loie.
Yeah.
Now, Loie is Heather's mum.
Yeah.
And
we've talked to her on the show several times.
She has been on the show several times. And she was diagnosed with cancer some time ago and has made the choice, it would seem, to leave her current embodiment.
Yeah.
And that's going on at the moment. So that's where a lot of Heather's time and energy has been spent over this weekend at least, is with her mum.
Yeah.
So that's what's going on. Unless there's more to add to that, Dee.
No.
Well, maybe one small thing, just from what Heather shared in the chat, which was that
How's it look?
Loie knows that she doesn't have to leave her embodiment. It seems to me, based on the information that's been shared, is that this is a conscious choice that she's made. We all have the power to heal ourselves. So I think that this is a choice Loie had to think long and hard about, and it was the decision had been made by her that it was something that she needed to do.
And we all here on the panel want to send our love and appreciation to Loie.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So much love
Indeed.
and
She's played an integral role in supporting Heather throughout this whole process. And, without her, Heather may not have been able to do exactly what she did in the way she did it.
Yep, very true.
Thank you to Loie. Okay, I'm going to open up the lines, guys. We've got area code 757.
Yes,
area
how you doing?
Hi, who am I speaking to?
Yes, this is Sovereign Line. How you doing tonight? I want to say peace, love, and light to the whole panel.
How are you?
Thanks, man.
And everyone in the whole universe.
We're not alone.
Yeah, we're definitely not alone. I have two questions tonight. And it comes out of concern of a loved one that I met the other day, and they're currently, the system, the power that wanted to deport them out of the country. I just want to know what's the best way to help my friend in that matter.
Wants to deport them?
Yes. Immigration has come after them, and they want to deport them back to Africa, and I want to help them in that matter. What's the best way to approach that?
I personally don't have the answer to that. Anybody else?
Unfortunately, it's not my area. I'm not quite sure how to answer that one.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone here has any experience dealing with that.
Just want to make one.
Okay, I'm gonna move on. I want to move on to my next question then. Last week, the announcement for the UV exchange was made that it was currently open for all and for anyone who wanted to come and play. And I know those are code words, and I want to know from the panel, do they think that the banks received this message, and are there any banks right now that are currently opted in and just waiting for people to come and tell them what their value is and access their value? Can I write myself a check, deposit it, and say, this is my value, give me my money?
Well, we do know that Heather is being approached by many people who have answered the call. Whether any of them have currently come up with a solution or an offer
transparent
that is transparent and doesn't come with strings attached is the question.
Okay. So do you suggest serving them a courtesy notice first?
I'd go and have the conversation with your bank.
Yeah.
It can't hurt.
Yeah, look,
and you know what? For your immigration problem, why don't you send a courtesy notice to the immigration department?
I thought about that too. Thank you very much. I just needed support on that note.
There's no reason why you shouldn't do that, and also directly to people involved as well. The courtesy notice is oriented around commercial things, and I had this conversation with Scott yesterday. Criminal matters and family court matters are very, very difficult and complex things to deal with, even in the normal course of events. And the courtesy notice is for much more clear-cut monetary demands and financial pressures rather than those other things. And as Bob just said, the best thing you can do is let them know they're promulgating a slavery system with a courtesy notice.
Okay. And expounding on the second question, what's the best way to approach the bank to speak to them?
Look, personally, I would. Bob might have
experience there.
Yeah, promissory notes, I think, are an interesting crack in their armour because they've been using our promissory notes unlawfully, and they know it. And if you go to them, you could say to them, I know you've been using my previous promissory notes, that is all of the application forms I signed, you've been using them unlawfully. And you could say to them, well, I'm going to forgive you the debts that you claim you owe me, and I'm also going to give you one more promissory note, but I wouldn't give them a really big one. I would give them just enough to cover any current problems you've got, because if you take your promissory note and put a big chunk of your value in the system, you're giving them real value. Real value.
Right.
That's where it's all coming from. And you don't want to go and turn around. I mean, theoretically, you could write any number you like on that check, but I wouldn't do it. If you've got a problem that's requiring $5,000, I'd give them a $5,000 promissory note and leave it at that, so that you immediately withdraw the funds from the bank. And one of the things that you need to do is, if they do agree to it, and I actually would be very interested to find out whether they'll even talk to you about it, you really need to have a contract with them that disallows them from monetizing that promissory note, that disallows them from promulgating higher values.
Well, that's the only reason they do any business with you in the first place, I think.
Right.
Is if they were.
You would have to speak to the right person. So you don't want to speak to a teller. You want to go to the manager or the CEO, the head of the bank, and you want to let them know that you know. So you're going to serve them a courtesy notice, or even a flyer, perhaps would do the trick.
Okay.
Informing them and letting them know, okay, here's my terms and conditions, because you just operate from the idea and knowledge that you're the creditor, not them. Okay. You're not asking them for money, right? You're telling them, I'm going to give you some value, and I want you to guard it and protect it in this account.
Okay.
Yep. They become a transaction center. What you're saying to them is, you've been foreclosed, but I'm going to help you to stay at least partially in existence by giving you a small fee as a transaction center. And you can negotiate a percentage with them, but don't give them much. I mean, they've still got to pay some staff to run the machines, and really the most useful thing they could be for us now is transaction centers. But we know they're greedy and they want it all, and they're going to resist that. But if enough of us start having these conversations with them, they'll probably go for any value they can get. But we have to crack that eggshell, and by all means, jump in and give it a shot.
Oh, I think I'm gonna be down there tomorrow to do that. Thank y'all so much.
Let us know how it goes.
Don't forget to let us know how you go.
Good luck, man.
And anybody else who wants to have the same conversation, please keep us posted. And that's the huge turnaround in thinking when you look at a bank, is that they're not the creditor and you're not the debtor. It's the other way around, and it always has been. And if you can come at it with that mentality and that knowing, and that when you walk into a bank, they're not giving you a service, you're giving them one. It changes the game completely. Okay, so thank you for calling in, and we'll quickly try and get to one more caller. Area code 707.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What's your name?
Hi, my name's Deborah, calling from Northern California.
Hi, Deborah.
Where, Deborah?
Where in Northern California?
Yeah, I'm from Northern California.
Oh, I'm in Humboldt County in Blue Lake.
Humboldt, okay. Thanks for calling, Deborah.
Thanks. Yeah, the question I called with about 5 minutes before the start of the show, I think you've addressed a lot in your last segment before taking questions, but I'll just throw it out there in case you want to say anything more on it, which basically I just called to ask what's happening with the Treasury CVAC.
The Treasury?
The Treasury CVAC.
You are the CVAC. Okay? The Treasury and the Treasure is not what you expect. It's the ability for you to use your value to create whatever you want. And that's the form we would like to deliver it in. Will there be an interim form? That's one of the things that we're trying to figure out and work out if it's necessary. If the event comes where you can get your true value, which is your ability to create that which you wish, that would be preferred, would it not?
Yes.
Okay. If that can be delivered quickly and effectively, that's what will be delivered. If an interim needs to be delivered before that can happen, then that will be delivered. Either way, your needs will be taken care of.
So you're sort of waiting to see if this event happens soon?
No, well, there's a few things happening concurrently. No one's sort of waiting to see if the event happens. The focus and energy.
We're currently working on both aspects.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The event is an inevitability. There's there's politics and financial things playing out in the background that have to be resolved and reconciled. They have to play out. We're just not sure of the exact order and timing, which is why it's really difficult to commit to anything, unfortunately. And also on the subject of CVACs themselves, because of the mixed understandings about how that would actually work, we want to resume that conversation post-event, when people's perspective is shifted to one where we can have a more sensible conversation about how exactly we play that out. There is one CVAC in place as the placeholder for everything we're talking about, and overlaid on that is the treasury aspect. That's one of the tasks of that one CVAC, is to placehold for the value that is us and to operate it as an accessible treasury in the forms that Bob just spoke of, and everything's in play at the moment. It's like watching the break on a pool table when someone whacks the cue ball really hard. The balls are spraying everywhere, and we're not sure where anything's quite going to land just at the moment.
And I just want to make the announcement before we go off air that the foreclosure flyer that was referenced earlier in the conversation is now up on the optin.com website. The documents, the patents on the free energy devices are also up there under documents. And what else? Was that all? I think so. Okay. Deborah, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. I think we'll try and squeeze in one more. Area code 773.
Hi, thanks for taking my call, and I want to ask a quick question to Chris.
Sure.
Chris, have you had any experience on the questions about the courtesy notice from Latin America or Spain?
I would probably have to ask that question of Scott. Scott, has there been any correspondence from Latin America or Spain that you've received?
I think there has been a couple that have come through. It is very much global. Large majority has been Australia, US, Canada, followed by UK. Not a whole lot from Latin America, no.
Okay, so, but I'm asking for a friend. Can you expand a little bit more, if you know? I know it works, it's worldwide, but can you elaborate more, if you can, about, Latin America and Spain, about if it actually works?
It is universal. And one example that helps people get that in their mind is the template that the Federal Reserve Bank of New York uses to register the collateral of the major banks around the world. If you go into the UCC registry and search for those banks, you will actually find, I'm pretty certain, a registration from the Federal Reserve Bank of New York to one of the major banks of the country that you're from. That gives you the evidence straight off that UCC is used in your country, and you can then join the dots that the foreclosure took place throughout that country as well. It's just another little bit of physical evidence to look at and show your bankers and governments that it is used there. So I hope that helps.
Okay, and if I get a chance, can I ask a last question? It's about the Keishi. I know his amazing technologies. I know about it, but is it being used now to help us?
Well, the Keshe technologies, the inventions that he talks about, have been around for a long time. So it's kind of a really understanding the objectives and what Keshe is doing. I think it's another one of those types of there's so much information out there, nobody really knows how to pull it apart. But the particular technologies that Kesha is talking about rolling out, they've been around for a really long time.
Okay, guys, we're down to the last few seconds. So thank you for your call, and thanks to everyone participating in the chat room and everyone listening live. Lovely, thank you. I want to say thank you to everybody on the panel, Bob, Chris, Dee, Brian. Special thanks to Scott and Darrel for joining us. Did I leave anybody out? I don't think so. Join us again tomorrow for the Collective Imagination. That will be a different conversation again. And we hope to see you then. Have a great week. Bye for now.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Love you, Charlie.
Bye-bye.
Bye, Lisa. Bye, guys.
Thank you.